So Daniel Dubois had a nice win over Jerome Miller in what some people are describing as a career best performance for him. He showed a lot of grit and heart and determination, things that people had previously questioned about him because of the fact that he quit twice against Joe Joyce and the other time against Alexander Usyk. So he's riding the crest of a wave at this point. So who does he fight next? How does he build upon the momentum gained in that Jerome Miller fight and the redemption gained in that fight? Well, if we have a look at the rankings here, they haven't yet been updated apart from the WBA. So Daniel Dubois has moved up to number 3 spot with the WBA. I can't remember where he was at prior to the rankings being updated. Maybe he was already at the number 3 spot. I forget now, but he's number 3 with the WBA. The WBC, again, they haven't updated their rankings yet. I've got him listed at number 14. Then you've got the IBF, who've got him at number 8, and he's also number 8 with a WBO. So he's having to fight his way up the rankings, presumably because he wants to get a title shot. And if not a title shot, then a fight which would pay him a lot of money. Now, if the Saudis are going to put on a bunch of shows this year, then it's possible that Daniel Dubois could fight someone who isn't necessarily a cash cow, but is, another contender who's trying to fight their way to the title and get a load of money for it. Presumably, the best payday of Daniel Dubois' career was against Jerome Miller. And that is not the most high-profile opponent he's fought. Joe Joyce was more high-profile. Alexander Usyk obviously was more high-profile. But again, presumably, he got his best payday for the Jerome Miller fight. So it's possible, if he gets to fight in Saudi again, that he could go in there against, let's say, a Frank Sanchez and get a career-high payday, or a Joseph Parker. That would be a high-profile fight. Would Parker really entertain Dubois at this point? Or is Parker looking for bigger and better? Maybe he would. Parker's been willing to fight a lot of people. So that's a potential fight right there. And it's definitely one I would like to see. Joseph Parker versus Daniel Dubois. If they made that fight next, I certainly wouldn't grumble. Or perhaps Daniel Dubois will be looking to challenge Manuel Charr for his old belt, because Daniel Dubois obviously used to have the WBA regular belt. They were supposed to do away with that belt after Dubois fought Usyk, because that was supposed to be the consolidation of the two belts, and then after that, the WBA were going to get rid of it. But apparently, Manuel Charr won some type of court case with the WBA, so they're unable to get rid of the belt, and now he gets to keep hold of it. So maybe Daniel Dubois could fight Manuel Charr for it. There's the possibility of Dubois against Joshua, but again, I'm not sure Joshua is going to be looking Dubois' direction. I think AJ is probably going to be looking more at people like Filip Hrgović, Zheli Zhang, potentially Frank Sanchez. Although financially, you'd think that the Dubois fight would make more sense for AJ than Frank Sanchez. But anyway, with the IBF, who is there for Daniel Dubois? I mean, the potential for a fight with Jared Anderson, two young guys. I doubt that either of their teams would want to do that right now, but you never know if the Saudis put up enough money for it. Then with the WBO, as I say, he's number 8. Could you have Daniel Dubois versus Fabio Wardley? Daniel Dubois versus Andy Ruiz? I know Dubois would love to fight Andy Ruiz, but I don't think Ruiz would entertain that fight at this stage again, unless the Saudis are really interested in that fight for their own reasons and desperately want to make it. And I'll give you an example of it. The Saudis really wanted to make a fight between Jao Pataya and Dimitri Bivol, despite the fact these guys are two completely different weight classes. It just tickled the fancy of, Turki Al-Sheikh. He wanted to see that fight, and so he offered, apparently, the opportunity. I'm not sure whether they discussed money, but you can be rest assured that it was an awful lot of money if they were offered anything. And yeah, he said that he wanted that fight. He told them both that he wanted that fight. It isn't a fight that most boxing fans would have come up with on their own. Okay, but certain people will think up fantasy matchups and between fighters who might not necessarily be in the same division, and they think, wow, if only that fight could happen. Well, the Saudis can actually make stuff like that happen. So you never know. Perhaps if they took an interest in Anderson versus Dubois, they could put up enough money to make the two sides take it. But I think more realistically, that notwithstanding, Daniel Dubois versus Martin Bakole is doable, although, Bakole and his trainer-manager think that Daniel Dubois will never take it in a million years because they say Bakole basically destroyed Daniel Dubois in sparring. Daniel Dubois versus Efe Jagba, that's a potential fight. That's a winnable fight, I think, for Daniel Dubois. Jagba's decent fighter, but I don't know. That's an interesting one. Both guys have actually shown some vulnerability in terms of obviously the fact they've both lost, but also their mental strength has been under question a little bit. Daniel Dubois and Ajagba, more so Dubois, but also Ajagba to some extent as well. You've got Lania Pero, who's a Cuban fighter who's highly ranked, at least with the WBA. The Daniel Dubois could fight. He's actually ranked below Dubois. So whether Dubois would go for that or not, we don't know. If they made it some type of eliminator, then perhaps he would. So yeah, there's lots of options for Dubois at the moment. He's a young guy, 26 years of age. They don't necessarily need to rush him, but it all depends on the pace him and his team, as in him, his manager, his trainer, Don Charles, want to move at. It isn't necessarily all about the promoter, Frank Warren. I mean, maybe Frank Warren wants to try and make some money out of him as quickly as possible because the division is so stacked. He doesn't want to risk having Daniel Dubois lose in a lesser fight that isn't going to make that much money, you know? I mean, that's kind of what I thought going into the Jarrell Miller fight. I thought, wow, coming off a loss, it's kind of a risky match to put Dubois in. Maybe Frank Warren's thinking, you know what? If you can't beat Jarrell Miller for this load of money the Saudis are going to pay you, then you're a write-off to me anyway. So let me just chuck you in there and see if you can do it. So maybe Frank Warren will have the same attitude moving forward with Dubois. We shall see. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below.